Hi there and welcome to the channel. I'm Lima Bravo 4 Foxtrot Hotel, Kjetil, and today I'm going to talk a bit about how I log with Ham2k PoLo. But first I got another type of logging to be done. I need to build a small campfire here so I keep warm, and then I'll tell you all about how I use Ham2k PoLo. In this video, I'm going to cover some of the basics and some of the more advanced things you can do with PoLo. And there are quite a few other things you can do as well. So if you don't get your answer here, maybe there are some answers for you over at the Ham2k PoLo webpage or in the Discord, which is really nice and active and where people actually help each other out quite a lot as well. So for a full disclosure, I am part of the Ham2k PoLo Elmer team, but there's no compensation for that, nor is it for this video. It is fully unsponsored and voluntary, and this is just based on how I use it and also quite a few of the questions that show up in the Discord, which is really nice and active. So feel free to jump over there. You'll find a link on the Ham2k homepage, as well as a link to the documentation for PoLo, where you can find more information about what to do and not to do with the app. As some of you may know, I'm also streaming together with a few guys over at the European Ham Radio Show. And a few weeks back, we had Sebastian, KI2D, as a guest on the show to tell us about some new and nice upcoming features in PoLo. And I'm not going to cover them here, of course, but there is a link to the video up here somewhere. And I highly recommend taking a stop there afterwards, because he tells you about some really nice upcoming features such as multi-station logging, cloud sync, and so on, which is really helpful, and well, at least I'm looking forward to them. If you come this far in the video and you don't know what PoLo is, then simply said, it's a very nice and effective logger for portable operations, and it's meant to be very user-friendly, and it's based around operating in parks on the air, summits on the air, and other activity programs like that. It's under constant development, and there's been a ton of new features being added since the start in 2024, well, at least when I started using it as a very early adopter. And there's always new things coming out and also improvements to old functions. And most of that is based on input from other users. It's not meant to replace your desktop logger. This is a mobile-first application, and it works on cell phones and on tablets. I, however, mostly use it on cell phones. I've used it on a tablet a few times, but for me, I very rarely use that in the field. Then I rather just use a laptop instead. So for me, I'm going to cover the mobile-based functionality. Although the functionality is the same, it's just that the layout is slightly different on a tablet because you have more screen real estate to use. The main version of the application is built to work on modern cell phones with quite a lot of memory. So if you have an old or a more basic cell phone, then you may have to go for something called PoLo Lite, and that has a lot less functionality. For example, it lacks the mapping functionality and so on. I've never used it, but if you do, or if you need to use it, then that's a good option, and you'll find information about that in the Ham2k forums or the Discord. Just reach out there and you'll get some help with that. So for this video, I'm going to start with the basics, just so that everybody has like a level playing field, and then I'll move over to some of the more advanced features I use. So when you first start up PoLo, you see this screen here, and this will let you fill in some of the basic information about you. So let's first go in here and fill in your call sign. So for me, I'm going to call it in LB4FH, and then I'm going to select that I do parks on the air and summits on the air, and there are other programs you can add as well. You can do that afterwards if you want to. After that, there's the normal privacy question. Do you want to share usage data? And well, that's up to you if you want to do that. And you can also share operational data, which includes call signs and QSOs and so on that you do. So, well, that's up to you if you want to do this. I'll leave it as the default. And then in here, you can see it's loading. And you can see there's an update available, even though I actually just installed it. So I will update this now. That will restart the application. And I do recommend that you do this before you go to a park, just in case you don't have data coverage or whatever. Now it tells me that I have to download a new list of parks on the air. You can do this, or this happens automatically for you, but you can also trigger it if you want to have a new park list. So I'm going to download that now. Okay, and then it will do the same for summits on the air. This is something you generally do once a month or something, so it's not a big thing to do, but for now it's nice to have it updated, and especially since it's a new installation that actually needs to do this. So that's some of the basic information, and then in here in accounts you can log into summits on the air if you are going to activate SOTA, and for call sign lookups you need to sign into QRZ. In this page you can set up a lot of the different settings. I'll let you go through and dig through them yourselves. Nothing really exciting there. Let's go back to the main window. This is the one you see when you start the application, and that is the activation list. And in here, after a while, you'll see all of your previous activations, and you can export them and search in them and so on. The front page does have a few other functions than the activation list though. For example, on the bottom here, you'll have the quick call lookup. So if you enter here, for example, Oscar Echo 4, Juliet Hotel Whiskey, you'll get some basic information. First, you'll get the QRZ information on the top, the country, roughly where he lives, you'll get a name, and if the person has some sort of function, for example, if it's a POTA map representative, as Jürgen is, or some other function, then it will be listed here, and this is maintained by PoLo itself. You can also click on it, and then you'll see some more information. And if I had, for example, previous QSOs with him, they would be listed here. So you can see, okay, I had 5 QSOs with that guy. You can also click just the QRZ button here, and it will open QRZ directly on his homepage. Of course, QRZ is not mobile friendly, but you get the point. It can be quite helpful. Next to the quick lookup field, you'll get the spot list, which just shows you who's active. And by default here, this stands on all bands and all modes. And I'm going to talk a bit about that later. So let's get into a new operation. And you just click the new operation button here. And well, it will set up with your default call sign. Location is where you are now. If you click that, it will ask you for permission to use it, and of course always allow that, and sorry for that being in Norwegian. And that will show that I'm in this location here. And going back, you can see it's set grid, and then you can go in and add operational details and so on, stuff you don't really need, but for some reason you may want to have notes or whatever for future use. So this is something I'm not going to use, but others may prefer to use that. Below that, you'll find the activities. And activities are such things as parks on the air, summits on the air, bunkers on the air, and so on. So let's add an activity here. Just click the activities here, and you'll find the types of programs you've set up. If you don't find what you're looking for, you'll find them under settings, so you can activate, for example, bunkers on the air if you prefer that. For now, clicking parks on the air, and it will use my location to try to find out nearby parks. And right now I'm in Skjævelandsheim State Forest, November Oscar 2416, so I can just click OK here, or plus. A very important thing to note here is that it doesn't verify that you're within the park. That's completely up to you. And it won't verify if you're within 2 first and so on. And also, this is the center point of the park, or at least where the yellow dot is. And for some parks, which are really large, that could be very, very far away. So maybe this would go as a duplicate to, for example, 2526, which is a massive park. It's over 100 kilometers wide. And so you can do this and search up a new park and then add that. But that is completely up to you. You can also add combinations. So say there's a SOTA nearby. You can go in here and you click summits on the air, and it will find the closest summits. For example, Åslandsnuten here. And of course I know it's not where I am now, but you can add it, and then you are actually in an activation who's both 2 parks on the air activations and a SOTA one. So this is kind of helpful. And if I now go back and I create a new operation, then you'll see that there's a template for POTA, SOTA. And after using this for a while, you will have built up so that you have 3 templates here for the, that you can choose from. And they will be based on your 3 latest operations. For example, template for POTA, templates for SOTA. If you use different call signs, you'll have maybe one for a template for Sierra Mike / Lima Bravo for Foxtrot Hotel, and so on. So this is a very good and quick thing. And this one will just try to pick the closest POTA and SOTA. Again, you have to verify that that is correct. That's not something the application will do for you. So for now, I'm gonna remove that, and I'm also gonna change my park manually over to K-test, because that's the one you're supposed to use when you're testing things in an application, because we're gonna do some spotting and so on. So here it says unknown park, but it's still a valid one. You can't activate it, but anyways, you can spot it. On the bottom of this page, you will have some buttons for managing operation logs. I'll cover that later. And you can also manually set it as a template or actually delete the operation if you want to get rid of it. So that's kind of helpful. Now, since this is a new operation, we need to find somewhere to operate. And for me, that usually starts by going over to the QSO list and setting my frequency. And you can see here, well, it complains that I'm not logged into SOTA Watch because I haven't logged into SOTA. So just go to Operation and go to Summits on the Air and remove Summits on the Air. Of course, if I wanted to activate SOTA, I would have actually had to log in that. So now I want to find a free frequency to use, and using spots is a very good helper for you when you're out in the field. But you need to set your frequency first, at least that's how I usually do it. So for now, let's go to 7.2 megahertz, and to do that you can just enter 7200 in here and press send, and you can see it will ask you if you want to go to SSB. Say if I wanted to do this on AM instead, you can just write AM or CW or FT8, and it will ask you if you want to change mode to AM, for example. And that will also affect spots. But let's get back to SSB here. So now we're over at the spots list, and by default this shows you everything that it thinks you're interested in. That means all bands and all modes that you have SOTA or POTA in. If you had bunkers on the air enabled, it would show you that as well, and the same with, for example, castles on the air or other support programs. This to me is a bit too wide, and I do like to filter it down. So to do that, you just click the all bands, all modes on top here, and you can click the all bands here, and you can set it to automatic, 40 meters. That will follow the frequency you have set in the previous page, and you can also do the same for mode here. I like to have maximum age here for 20 minutes. Then you see some recently active people. So if there's more than 20 minutes since a spot, it's reasonable to assume that they are no longer on the frequency. Also, you can sort the list either by spot time, which I think is kind of chaotic, or by frequency. Below here, you can select sources, and you can also, for example, remove continents or just focus on one continent. So if you only want to see Africa or Asia, then you uncheck all of the others. Very, very helpful thing. To get back, just click show 9 out of 109 spots. You can see it's filtered quite a lot here. And then you can see here that there's some people on different frequencies around. And of course, you want to avoid them. Then you can start scanning for another frequency and find out that, well, this frequency is actually free. I know that there's nobody spotted there, and I can't hear anybody. And then it's, well, reasonably safe to assume that you can activate there as well. So that's how I go ahead when I want to find my spots to activate from. So now it's time to spot myself. I found a free frequency, and let's say I want to do 7.2 megahertz and I want to do AM. That would be out of band here in Norway, but well, this is the K-test one, so it's not going to show up anywhere. But let's say I do that. The simplest thing you can do is just write spot here, and it will self-spot when you press send. In the more recent versions of these applications that are still in beta, meaning that you have to be a part of the beta program, you can also add a comment here. So you take spot and then you just press space and add a comment. So really helpful to have. For now, I'm just going to press send here, and you can see self-spotting at 7.200. Go over to the spot list here, refresh that, and you can see I'm spotted here at 7.200 on the AM mode. You can also use the buttons up here. Just scroll sideways, press self-spotting, and in here you can add a comment. Another new function that you can see in Sebastian's demonstration is that it will actually auto-spot you every 10 minutes. And that functionality will be there as long as you are active in this window and you don't change frequency and so on. So it's a very nice function to keep actively spotted on a bad day, especially when you're using QRP and so on. One thing that frequently happens when you're out there is that multi-operator stations will call you. That means that there are two people or more activating the same park, and they pass the mic to each other so that both or all of them get to activate. So let's say that I'm working Morten here, Lima Bravo 0 Foxtrot India, and I know that he's in some park, for example this one, and then I just press send. And when you're done with QSO, he says, by the way, we're two operators here. Then you can just click his call sign here, and you just press a comma and add, for example, LB5JJ, and press save. And that will copy all of the information, including the park reference and so on. You can, of course, also do this on the fly. For example, if you have this guy, and then you have this guy, and well, both of them are active, then you just click save, and you've added two new ones. So that's pretty nice. In the list now, you can see I have quite a few people in there, and you can see there are some icons on some of them. For example, the two on top, they have YouTube channels. Øystein also has a YouTube channel, but he made some fun potato videos, so he has a special one. So you can click it and you can get a link to his video. And also click his name, of course, and then you'll see even more information about him. If you would like to have flags here, you go to the main menu, and then to logging settings, and then you do country flags for all contacts. Otherwise, it won't show you the country flags for the ones in your country. It will show it for other people, of course. So in here, Oscar Echo 4, Juliet, Hotel, Whiskey, Jürgen, like so, you'll see his flag there. When you're out activating and you want to do some hunting, you can easily do that by clicking the spots list here. And you can then just click the name of the person you want to activate, and PoLo will then fill in everything over here in the input fields. So you get the park reference, and you get the call sign and stuff like that. Then you can just save him, or you can do, for example, a 5-5 if that's what you're going to send as a report. In this case, you can see that there's two parks or two trees, and PoLo automatically got that for you. In some cases, it may not do that. That depends on how that person is spotted. So if you want to change that, you can go in there, go to the P2P, and you can go in and, for example, say that you know that this person was in 0001 instead, and then that is correct. Click the Park to Park button again, and then you click Save. I'll cover a bit more about that later. Back in the spots list now, you can see that this person is suddenly green. That means that you either haven't logged the park reference for the person, for example, if they were hunting you, or maybe they have moved on to a new park and you've still been in the same park for a long time. Or maybe you actually wrote down the wrong park as I did. So then you can go in there, click the person again, and you can see that there's a new park on there, and you can save it. When we then go back to the spots list, you can see that he's got a strike through and is grayed out. So that way you can see I've run this station. You can also see yourself there with orange text, and that's very nice if you want to verify that you're actually on the spots list and that you're with the correct mode, the correct frequency, or that somebody else has actually spotted you. So that's very, very helpful. If you then click somebody and you don't manage to succeed with the QSO, then you can go over here and you can just click the erase one, and it will reset everything for you. That applies if you input things yourself as well. When you're manually entering a QSO and say that you hear that that person is in a park, for example, if they're calling you park to park, or you just randomly hear them on the band, then you just first enter their call sign information here, and then you can go in and, for example, add a park reference. So say that you want to add that for Park 2, 3, 4, 5 over in Great Britain, and well, then you know that that's added in. You can see there that I didn't write GB. I just entered the number because PoLo knows the prefix of the person, and then for parks on the air knows what the prefix is supposed to be. So that's very helpful. If there's more than one park, you can go in here and add, for example, 3, 4, 5, 6 as well. And then there are 2 parks. Very helpful. But after working Charlotte, I heard that she's also on a SOTA. You just click here, and then you scroll here to the side and you find SOTA. And you can see here now it says P2P as park to park and SOTA. If you were activating a SOTA summit, it would say summit to summit instead. And if you weren't in a POTA, it would say POTA there instead of park to park. So that changes with the context you're in. In this case, I'm gonna add the summit she's on. That, for example, would be Golf/Sierra Papa 001. But you don't really need to write all of that. You can just write, for example, here GSP 001, and PoLo will then understand where the slashes and dashes should be, in most cases at least. Not always, and that's because Summits on the Air has a bit more complicated naming structure than what PoLo has. Just click this one again and click Save, and then you can see that she also has a summit on her name. And what you saw there was me actually manually editing a QSO. And that happens when you just click the name here, and then you can go in and edit everything afterwards. Say that you know that the person is operating in a different grid square. You go here to the side, and you click More, and then you get to the detail page here. And in here, you can go in and fill in that he's, for example, in Golf Sierra instead. And for some sort of operations, for example, for 2-meter operations, that's pretty important to be able to do that. You then just click back and then click Save, and that information is saved for this operation. Another thing that many people do that you may want to do in PoLo is actually punching in a paper log. And that's pretty simple. So let's start a new operation here. And then just go with the POTA nearest template, just for the sake of it here. And then let's say I was out earlier today. So say I was out at, for example, 10 and 15. And you enter that, and then it will simply ask you to set the time to 10:15. So let's say we were also activating at, for example, 14.267 megahertz. It automatically detects I'm on 20 meters and SSB. Save that, and then we can start punching the numbers of the people that called in, for example, LB0FI. And these guys, of course, it will go a bit forward in time. So let's go in here and add +1 minute, and then you add 1 minute. And this is a bit easier if you have a proper keyboard set up on your phone. On this one, I don't have that, so that's why I'm switching a bit back and forth. 1 minute forward, and then you go in there and you can say that, for example, LB5JJ called me 1 minute later. Of course, this will be approximate. So for me, this would be a very good help to actually punch in paper logs, and you can do it quite quickly. You can go back and forth with 1 hour, 1 day, and 1 minute. So say that we want to go plus or minus 1 day to take one yesterday. -1D, and then you change by -1 day from where you are. And then you say that you got, for example, DL3MHT there, Tobias. And then you can see that comes as yesterday in this log. Really, really helpful. So if you log on paper, this is a good way to get it in, especially some of them. Another way to get logs into the program is if you, for example, have an ADIF file from another program, such as FT8TW, as I use for FT8, or if you're, for example, logging with WSJTX and you send the file over by email, or another operator sends you the log. So say that I want to import a log file from FT8TW. I go to Manage Operation Logs, add QSOs from ADIF files, and in here I've downloaded the file, which is then log something.ad.txt. I enter that, and nothing really happens until you go back and you see that you suddenly have 18 QSOs. In this list here, you can see there are some previous ones from previous dates. This is just a random log file. And you can see that these guys don't have any information to them. So you just click the three dots on the side here, and then you scroll down to look up all QSOs, and then the app will go to QRZ and then start downloading it. And it will add all required information as it finds it, including names and locations and so on, depending on if you have a subscription on QRZ or not. One thing to note here is that the app may be slightly unresponsive. For example, if you try scrolling while this happens, it will scroll down to the bottom automatically and so on. That's just a function on how it's working. So now I've logged quite a few QSOs here and I would like to export it. To do that, you go to Operation and then again Manage Operation Logs. And you can see here that there are two logs that are generated. It's POTA Activation and it's SOTA Hunter, since I hunted a SOTA. You can choose which of these you want to export, or any or all. The ones for the activation or hunter, they contain only the information about references, call sign, and so on, while the full ADIF information, that contains all of the information regarding their names and so on, things that you've downloaded. So the two top ones, they are stripped of personal information, while the bottom ones have personal information in it. When you click the export to selected files, or how many selected files you have, then you'll get the sharing menu, at least here on Android. I don't have any Apple devices, so I have no idea how that works, but it's probably something like the same. And in here you can click and send it to an email, you can send it to Gmail, you can send it to OneDrive, and whatever other service you have set up. So that's pretty simple to do. So when you click your email here, then it will just add it as attachments, or it will save it in the folder you want to use over at OneDrive or whatever else you're using. In the stream where Sebastian showed off the new stuff, there were some really cool new things I would like to try out. For example, adding notes inline. You just write note and your note. Or that you, for example, can have breaks in an operation. So when you're doing a POTA rove, you can have everything in one log file. You just add a break, and then you change all of the settings, for example, which reference you're in, and so on. And then you'll just have one log file for all of these, and it will then split it into several log files when you export it. Very helpful and very nice, and I'm looking forward to that being in the production releases as well. For now, if you're part of the beta program, you actually have test access to it, so I highly recommend checking it out when you can. So just to summarize then, PoLo, that really quickly replaced my previous loggers. So for me, PoLo has been and still is the most intuitive logging solution I know for portable operations, at least out in the field. And it is really easy to get into the flow while using it. There's a ton of simple shortcuts. I've shown you some of them here, and there are quite a few others that I haven't, that you will discover, or maybe you'll even go over to the tips and tricks section over at the documentation and have a look. And these are things I don't necessarily use, but may be very, very helpful for you. And also, as I said, Sebastian showed up some of the cool new features in one of the latest streams over at the European Ham Radio Show. I do recommend that you check that out as well to see what's coming. So is there anything I've forgotten to mention here? Any honorable mentions of good functionality that you have? Please leave it as a tip below here, and then others can use it as well. So thank you very much for watching this Fireside talk about Ham2k PoLo. See you on air 7-3.